I know everybody's been waiting. We are 1 week away from the kickoff special at Davis, Kessler, and Davis. I've already formatted it. I'm so far ahead of the game. I'm the king. Did anybody get all the 6,000 emails I sent today? How about you, Robbie Davis?
Oh yeah, I've got them. I'm making my way through them. I had court tonight, so I've been a little busy, but I'm making my way through them.
Do you need any interpreter or anything? So right now we have multiple guests. The Off-Centered Card Show from Lyons, Michigan. Our boy Justin Thomas, the biggest Bobby Bowden fan ever and an ACC expert. Our boy Chappie, who is a member of Dr. Roto's team. You know, we did that basketball show with Chappie. Little did we know he would be the first star. I assumed it would be me, but I was wrong.
I knew
our
it.
friend Phil Harris and much, much more. And Robbie, we will be at Davis, Kessler, and Davis next week.
All right. And then if people they're zooming or they're joining the studio.
We don't really know, but yeah, they can join the studio. We'll have some guests via studio and some guests via phone, but I've got the phone taken care of.
Okay.
So
it's next week. Sweet. Before my
week?
operation. Yes.
I'm
stoked.
Now we're bringing in the man that's always late, 3 minutes late today, the best he's done in a while. West Coast time, the man that runs on Indian Standard Time, Raj Mehta.
Well done. Hey, what's up, everybody? Yeah, perfect intro. IST reference. Very impressed. Yeah, excited, especially for next week. These guys were already trying to milk me for draft strategy stuff, and maybe because I've only been in the league 4 years. By the way, the best league I've ever been in, and been in the finals 3 of the 4 times and playoff all 4 times. So I guess that's why they're asking me questions, because both of them never mind.
Between the 3 of us, we have 2 championships. We won't say who doesn't have one.
Excuse the camera. A dog messed it up, but yeah. I guess you're right. We do. My dog ate the camera. My dog ate my fantasy championship.
Yeah. So speaking of that, we have commitments from 3 members of the league. Brendan Chain, Criminal, and your arch nemesis, George Franklin's rap partner, Clipper Clay.
Oh, gosh, I'm going to murder Clipper Clay.
I told Clipper.
Hey, he's allowed to come on?
Do what?
I didn't know he allowed to come on.
I don't know. I don't know.
That's a wife reference. Detail. Love you. Sorry.
A Criminal will be drunk by then. I've never seen him sober at this time. So, big week heading into football season. We'll talk a little basketball, a little baseball tonight, but a lot of football talk tonight. And we start with the biggest story in the nation. My camera's jacked up. Let me see if I can get myself. You know, people want to see me. I'm so handsome. That's better. That was better for just a minute.
You have a face built for radio.
I have a face. That's true.
Hey,
we do this every week. I don't know why you guys have such camera issues.
It's not on my computer, and I have a nice setup, and then my dog just moved it. It's really elaborate. Let me tell you.
I just don't know how to use my stuff. The lead story tonight's a very serious one. College football lost a member of its royalty class. And when I talk about royalty class, I talk about the Bear Bryants, the Nick Sabans, those type of coaches. You know, we know there's a handful of them, but last week we lost Bobby Bowden. Robbie, you for a long time before you grew up, you became a Tennessee fan. You were a huge FSU fan at one point.
Mm-hmm.
How was losing Bobby Bowden for that group your age? He had to be the coach when you were going through high school.
Yeah, and as you say, I grew up. I mean, obviously, I grew up in Tennessee. Grew up a Florida State fan. I went to many of games, both in Tallahassee, in Gainesville, at Miami. Anytime they go to a bowl game, I was at the Fiesta Bowl when Florida State lost the championship to Tennessee. I was at the Orange Bowl when Florida State lost the championship to Oklahoma. I was at the Sugar Bowl when Florida State lost the championship to Florida.
How's this happen, Rob?
One game I was not
family.
at was the one that Peter Warwick and the Seminoles beat Michael Vick in 1999 at the Sugar Bowl. So the one time I wasn't there, they won. So which kind of much as me as a sports fan in a nutshell, as you can imagine.
So did you go to that 98 title game as a Tennessee fan, a Florida State fan, or neutral?
So I was 14, and I would have been as a Florida State fan.
Oh, wow.
How'd you become a fan? Did your brother go there or something, or you just were
No,
obsessive?
just my youngest memory of football was Deion Sanders, a pick six, and like the colors, the uniforms, just the bravado, and just really liked it. And then so wanted to go there, and then
you realized you were too smart.
Yeah. And so I was like, maybe our football team's not the reason to go to college somewhere. So I ended up going to Tennessee, which also is not the greatest school, but it was in state, so it's cheap. So I grew up, Bobby Bowden. He was just, I wouldn't say necessarily larger than life. He was kind of down to earth and not really, there's not too much you couldn't like about him, not that he ran the cleanest program. There was obviously some off the field issues, but I mean, I'll get into some stats later, but putting players in the NFL, won the 2 championships. There was the huge game in '93 where they lost to Notre Dame and then came back and won the championship against a really good Nebraska team. The players seemed to love him, and he put a lot of people in the NFL. And I'll let Raj comment. I think we're going to talk about the run they went on, and after this. But just a winner, and sad to hear about his passing.
So, Raj, what did you? Yeah, you were on the West Coast at this point. Was Florida State a major player in your head, or what was Florida State, you being in the LA area?
As a Southern Cal guy, SC had their moments in the 80s, but early 90s, not so much. I used to kind of squint my eyes and pretend that garnet was like our cardinal in gold. And it was pretty close, except for we had a horse, they had a horse. The only difference was they were in the top 5 14 or 15 years in a row, I think from 87 to 2000. And we didn't sniff the top 5 during that time. No, they were a powerhouse. And one game I'll never forget, these kids today talk about USC and Texas, which I was at, and that was a national championship. But the 93 Florida State Notre Dame game is a game I'll never forget. Mm-hmm. And it was kind of analogous to the SC game, in my opinion, that, the better team probably didn't win that day. Notre Dame was at home, and, the best players on the field did that day. That was a great Florida State team. There were academic fraud and mentions of, that 93 championship spending spree from an agent. That didn't affect on-field play or who the kids were. That was nonsense. Every team, I don't want to use that rationalization, but a lot of programs did similar things, if not much worse. A few things about Bobby Bowden. Number one, I read an article where Nick Saban said that when he was at West Virginia, Bowden didn't even know him, and Saban's father had passed away. Bobby Bowden called him up and offered a job on his staff, not only because he was a rising up and comer, but because his mother was nearby, and he asked him if he wanted to be closer to his mom.
Wow.
And Nick Saban said he's never forgotten that. That's just an amazing human being. The other thing I think about with Bobby Bowden now, looking back, is northwestern Florida is not exactly the most cosmopolitan area in the world. Not only did he turn a program around, but he didn't see color. I've read that from numerous people, even the most notable Deion Sanders, calling him like a father figure and whatnot. I wasn't there, but it doesn't seem like it was about wins and losses only. he cared about these kids, and he didn't see color. You know, he's a very religious man, but, you know, he often talked about God and family, but also about putting people before himself. And that's evident because I've never seen a player have a negative thing to say about him. Haven't been looking for it per se, but, you know, look at the guys he put in the league. And again, he, like Warren Sapp said, you know, not Warren Sapp, I can't think of his name. Regardless, the overarching point was that, you know, these guys said they made him better men. They made him better people. So much respect for that.
Yeah, and when he took over Florida State, they were nothing. I mean, it's what you talk about some of the giants of the games, much to what Snyder did at Kansas State is what Bobby Bowden did at Florida State. I mean, with a better recruiting ground. But I mean that was a nothing job with no history at all. And I mean, Florida State is Bobby Bowden. That's their history. Jimbo won one obviously there, and you know with Bowden, some of Bowden's players, and then it's fallen off since.
So I want to add a little bit because I'm just a tad older than you guys. Not only was I think a great draw to what Florida State was when I started watching college football, where they were Southern Miss. They were a program that wanted to go from mid-level, mid-major to get to the big time. And Bobby Bowden said, basically, I will play anybody, anywhere. And he started doing that. And that grew that program. Florida State was a girls' college until the late 50s. The only football
40 years
without
44 years without football. Sorry.
Yeah, the only football players I knew from Florida State in the 70s was Burt Reynolds, the actor, and Ron Simmons, the wrestler. It wasn't about football until Bobby Bowden.
Lee Corso, don't forget about Corso.
Well, Corso too. I forgot about Corso, but it was Burt Reynolds, Lee Corso, and Ron Simmons. That was your football history. There was a point, a 14-year run, that I think Florida State was ever been as good as Alabama is today. And I want to read you some of these stats. 14 seasons, 152, 19, and 1. So he lost about a game 0.1 a year over 14 years. Of course, he won 2 titles that Robbie was talking about. He finished second twice and third 5 times. I think there's a very good argument that it may be easier to win a national championship under the current system of the Bowl Championship Series. And I keep dropping it. Roger, are you there?
I can hear you.
Okay. So, if you lost a game in 1988, you weren't playing for a national championship. Robbie, do you think he would have won more titles in an environment where you play the top 4 off every year?
So, my initial reaction to this topic was, this is probably Bowden's run was probably the second best run of all time, or at least the modern football era behind obviously Nick Saban at Alabama. I started looking at the numbers, so it is amazingly similar. So each program had it took 12 seasons to lose 17 games. From 1987 to 1999, Florida State lost 17 games. During that time, they won 8 conference titles. They won 2 national titles. During the comparative window to Alabama from 2008 to 2020, they lost 17 games also. Alabama only won 3 conference titles, but 6 national championships. Think about the difference between what you're able to do now in what was the BCS and the college football playoff versus that. that Florida State team, that Florida State run would have been very similar. Now, do they cash in on championship games? Obviously, Saban's what, like 7-2 in championship games, maybe 7-1. So he's got a much better record in the biggest game. But that Florida State run would have been very similar to what Alabama's on now, where if you're fourth or fifth, you're getting the benefit of the doubt. You're in the playoff.
Yes, very similar.
And so, you have Alabama. They've won 3 championships without winning their conference during this run for Saban, where Florida State won 8 and then two championships. Obviously, and we all know this. The SEC, modern day SEC, is much, much, much more difficult than the ACC when Bobby Bowden was coaching. A lot of this run was even pre-Miami. It was just Florida State, and then I think they went something like 7 or 8 years without ever losing a conference game. I remember when UVA beat them in '95, I believe it was, when they ran the direct snap to Warwick Dunn. He got stopped on the 1-yard line. I think that may have been the first game that Florida State lost in conference.
I have that down here. They
Yeah.
joined in '92 or
Yeah.
'93 and did not lose for 5 or 6 years. So UVA beat them, and it was national headlines. ESPN. I had to be home that weekend, as you know, I'm mostly at games, and they were cutting in on ABC that Florida State trailed in a football game. That's what big news it was.
Yeah.
I remember that. I actually remember that.
Every easier conference, but they during that time they always played Florida, who was a powerhouse in itself. Always played Miami, who was a powerhouse. There have been many of years during Saban's run where Alabama's only had 1 or 2 tough games.
Hey, real quick, we talked about that in the conference was a bit easier, but another thing about Bowden is he won 11 consecutive bowl games from like 85 to 95 or 96 when you add the one, whatever, largely against teams that he didn't face. So, the parity was different back then. But again, I had fun when I went to Northwest Florida, like driving through on I-10, but it's not a place as a kid I'd want to go to school. He put him on the map, as we've said. Just some amazing accomplishments. And like I said, off the field as much as on.
So to that point, I think it's fair to say that he actually had some bad luck when it comes to national titles. He had his kicker miss 3 field goals wide right against Miami that kept him out of title games.
The Notre Dame game. They claimed the national championship that year, but yeah, I didn't mean to interrupt, but with the BCS, it basically funnels, even though it's BS in many respects. It's a greater chance of a good team, especially a team on TV, playing for national championship. Florida State won in 93, 99, and 2013, 13 being Jimbo. But, they unclaimed 1980, 87, 92, 94, and 96. All years in which if we would have had, number 1 versus number 2, or at least a top 4, top 6, top 8. It was a total crapshoot back then. And then, as we're going to discuss later, it was the AP writers, which are fairly regionally biased, if you will, and then coaches who don't give a crap, whose aides usually, and those two things were determinative of the national championship, and then he was a finalist in 96, 98, and 2000, 98 to you guys. This is a guy that could have had 10, 11, 12 championships.
That 98 team was a 3rd-string quarterback that played in the championship game.
Yeah.
Because that was Kansas State and UCLA lost the final weekend.
That was crazy.
And FSU was sitting at 4th or 5th and jumped all the way up.
And UCLA, you guys remember, sorry, Randall, real quick, they lost to Miami last game of the year, and that was a reschedule from Hurricane Andrew or something, and that UCLA team was stacked.
Yeah.
Not only that,
thank God they did play.
Not only that, the starting quarterback was Chris Winkie.
Yeah,
I don't like Tennessee's chances playing Chris Winkie in that 98 game.
Did he win the Heisman? What year did he win the Heisman? The year before?
Yes, 99 when they beat Virginia Tech. He won the Heisman.
Obviously, Charles Woodson won that year.
Talk about a great game that I was not at. But, yeah, that Florida State-Virginia Tech game on turf with Vic and Peter Ward going back and forth. That was also – we talk about the 93 Notre Dame, Florida State, and then that Texas USC game. That game was every bit as dynamic also.
So, guys, I got one negative I'm going to talk about. And I do think Bobby Bowden – if I was listing the 3 greatest coaches in college football, he would be in the list. I don't know how I'd break it down, but he would be on the list. And the other 2 would be Bear Bryant and Nick Saban. That's just my personal opinion. In 92, Bobby Bowden basically told the SEC that I'm not joining your conference when I can join the ACC and win every year. Looking back on that decision, Tennessee settled for South Carolina in that place. Also, that environment, I think Florida State could have got into the conference because the Florida hate in 1992 wasn't near as bad as it would become during the Tim Tebow era. Do you think Bobby Bowden would have chose to go to the SEC looking back?
I mean, so that's a kind of a double-layered question. Do I think Florida State would have wanted to join the SEC looking back? Probably. Do I think Bobby Bowden would have? No, I don't think. I think he was in that path. The ACC, I mean, obviously it's not the Big Ten and the SEC, but I mean, it's probably the 3rd most powerful conference right as we stand right now. And so I think he built the premier program in the Atlantic Coast Conference when he passed it over to Jimbo. So no, I don't think he would want to go back and compete with – I mean, they still competed with Florida. I think the Miami game was very important to him also. And, at that point, you're looking at 2 different – Miami was in the Big East, Florida's in the SEC. I don't necessarily think he would have regretted it. But I think looking back on it, maybe Florida State probably regrets it.
That's exactly what I was thinking too.
I disagree in the sense that, I mean, no offense, but the SEC wasn't really anything until the BCS era, and kids started sort of centrally focusing upon these powerhouse schools and regions that had a lot of talent, but they, I don't want to pigeonhole these things, but the SEC wasn't that big of a deal back then. There wasn't the national TV deal. I never watched the CBS game at noon out there, 3:30 or 12:30, 3:30. For whatever reason, the SEC's ascension was meteoric. Probably coincided with BCS and these great teams. And I digress. I'm not going to get into academic standards, among other things that local media, even Florida State. I remember hearing all sorts of stuff about like Tallahassee PD, like if somebody got busted, like that guy either really messed up or the cop wasn't on the payroll. And, it's just a fact in smaller towns.
Crab legs from the wrong Publix and then all hell breaks loose.
Yeah. Or you, what did he say in that cafeteria? We'll leave it alone. But smaller town, a lot of pride there. There's obviously less of a spotlight back then. Now it's a national spotlight, with social media and whatnot. But my point is that the money wasn't there back then. It wasn't a national TV deal. He didn't need the SEC. He was his own conference.
Absolutely. I think that's valid.
Why join it? And he already played Miami. He already played Florida. He already usually beat them both, so he owned the state. And back then, early 90s, Bama had, a 92 championship. Tennessee was strong, but the rest of the conference, I don't recall anyone being a powerhouse. So why join it? Today, heck yeah, he would have joined it. But back then, I don't think so.
Yeah, that's a very fair point as far as hindsight's 2020, and look what the SEC. But looking back on that mid-90s, to Roger's point, the biggest games of the year, the biggest games on the calendar were generally Florida State was involved in them, whether it was Notre Dame, Florida State, Miami, Florida State, Florida. I mean, those were all the games of the year. And then the only real rivalry during that time that probably matched that was Tennessee, Florida. And Bowden was already part of the Florida. And really, looking back on it, it's kind of which conference ended up ESPN hitching its wagon to, and off she ran.
I think Roger, that may be the most valid point. I tried to interrupt you, but they were their own conference in 1995. You're absolutely right. Next week we'll be plugging. We have our football special coming in live from Davis, Kessler, and Davis on Cherokee Boulevard, and we have a friend of ours, Justin Thomas, who is the biggest Bobby Bowden fan in the world, calling in, and I asked him today about would he do it, and I thought this was very poignant. You could see the emotion he had of being able to talk about Bobby Bowden and tell his story. I think we all have those kind of figures in our life. I was very emotionally attached to Johnny Majors. I never was a Phil Fulmer guy. I loved Johnny Majors, and that day that Coach Majors died, it was emotional for me. You know, you get attached to these celebrities and sports stars, but in the South where we live now, I'm not sure the football coach at the major schools in the state may not be the most famous celebrity regional in that state. I think Nick Saban in Alabama absolutely is the most famous individual in Alabama. Kirby Smart may very well be at Georgia. But at that point, Bobby Bowden may have been the most celebrity person in Florida, West Georgia, South Alabama, and maybe the most popular college football personality at the time.
Still delayed.
We will definitely have more with Coach Bowden. Anybody got another word about Coach Bowden to sum it up?
I do real quick. Nothing emotionally weighty, but he lost wide right 1. They were 10-0. Miami was undefeated. I think he lost by 1. The next year, a couple years, wide right 2. They were the number 3. I think Miami was number 2, both undefeated. It would have tied the game. As a Raider fan, in 2000, Al Davis, with the 18th overall pick, selected a kicker from Florida State. At the time, that Raider team was loaded, and they they had massive issues with kickoffs, with field goals. I mean, the coverage was terrible. They gave up a ton of touchdowns. Janikowski, who was 17th overall, came from there, and Bowden, I wasn't in the recruiting or coach's room, but certainly looked like he emphasized kickers, and he found what's his name, Janikowski, Seabass, and he had another nickname that was fairly racially centric, the Polish something or other. But he ended up playing almost 20 years in the league. The Raiders lost in 2001. That was their best team, in my opinion, to the Tuck Rule. 2002, Siragusa's fat butt fell on Gannon in the AFC Championship. But Al Davis said they were 1 or 2 players away, and everybody ridiculed him, including myself at the time. But Janikowski played for 18 or 19 years and put the Raiders right where they needed to be. And maybe without wide right 1 and 2, Bowden would have emphasized such a thing. And that guy was pretty darn amazing at Florida State and for the Raiders. So again, Bobby Bowden, just another thing where he's an innovator and a lot of foresight.
And my closing thoughts are, I'm myself not a religious person, but I do appreciate the conviction that he had and that he helped young men, a lot of times troubled, find their path. And I've heard Mark Richt in many interviews credit Bobby Bowden to Mark Richt's faith and what that spread through at Florida State, at Georgia later on, and down in Miami. That's a lot of kids in a big region that are getting faith in a father figure preached to them on a daily basis, which, you hear. And Warwick Dunn, I don't know if anyone knows that story. Warwick Dunn, who his father was shot when he was a very young kid, credits Bobby Bowden to getting him out of New Orleans and becoming a player at Florida State, then later in the pros. And now I think it's something ungodly. Like, he's built 100 to 200 houses for lower income families. Like, just a great thing is not necessarily Bowden's legacy, but the legacy of others that are because of Bowden.
Start somewhere.
Yeah.
Apropos right there, man. And it's not necessarily what the man does himself, but the man influenced a lot of great. And I don't know if anybody's been down in the Okapaka area where he got a lot of players from. It's one of the poorest areas of the United States. And, the Peter Warwicks and the Warwick Dunn's mom was a police officer, but a single mom. The Deion Sanders of the world, they didn't come out of the Leave It to Beaver household.
No.
And a lot of them looked at Coach Bowden as a father figure. So
Deion from Fort Myers, Florida.
Yeah.
Quick note: all three of those guys are speaking at his funeral, which says a lot, man. I don't know how many kids had a coach had such a great impact upon kids. 30 years later, where they're going to speak. Charlie Ward, Warwick Dunn, and Deion Sanders at his funeral. So it's for itself. And again, the man didn't see color or anything else. Class, he saw people and he invested in them, and that's much respect, man. Much respect.
So River City Media, the three guys here, nothing but love. And wherever you're at tonight, Bobby Bowden, the earth, our life, college football was better because of you. So
Life was better because of you.
Absolutely. So it makes it hard
Humanity.
to move on to the next subject because I'm going to talk about a guy I don't like too much right now. But we're going to talk about USA basketball and Mr. Durant's comments. Now, first of all, I'm going to open this segment by Kevin Durant said that all the media that said the USA couldn't win the gold medal should offer apologies. 2 weeks ago, I said there was no way in Hades that this team was going to win a gold medal. I think I even picked the French team to win it. So, Kevin, I'm sorry. Guys, what did the USA basketball team do to get it back together? Either one of you probably go first on that one.
All right. I mean, I think they just got more time playing together. I mean, it's been said many times, a lot of these other countries have five NBA players, 4 NBA players, 6 NBA players. We have 10. And not only do we have 10, with all due respect to Doncic and the guys from Australia, we brought the best player in the world, at least one of the top 3. You can go Giannis, LeBron, Kevin Durant, anywhere you want to. Look, Kevin Durant's the biggest freak of them all, and he wanted this, and he showed, and I think a lot of it was how the NBA Finals ended. I just think he turned it on. He wanted it more, and they're just better when they want it more. I think the pride, once it got into the elimination, the pride of playing for I mean, Durant wrapping the flag around him, and don't get me wrong, we as a country are probably the most divided of any of those teams that we're playing, and as far as what we've got going on here. And for them, young men of well, I guess they're not young men anymore, but youngish men of color to step up and say, hey, we're playing for our country and we're going to give it our all and really go into it. And I think they got a little mad. Durant seems to be a little sensitive with the media, and I think he got pissed off and he just said, I'll show you. And hey, congrats to the whole team. And that was a well-deserved gold medal.
Raj, the game that I watched that I kind of went, oh well, I'm gonna be wrong about this one. They manhandled a very talented French team, 93-82 in the opening round. I tend to agree with Robbie. Do you think it was all the negative press coming their way that they just finally put it on their back and said, "Hey, we're going to go win a gold medal"?
I think that has something to do with it. You know, when you're number one, you know, after the pandemic and a shortened off season, then you had a long season, and teams like, you know, Milwaukee and Phoenix, Devin Booker, Chris Middleton, Drew Holiday, they play a long time. And a lot of guys said, how are they playing in the Olympics, more or less? They alluded towards that. But they got their legs, and the legs kind of involved going through Durant. And yeah, Durant's a freak. Is he a chap ass when it comes to the media and everybody calling him out? He's always been. He's been a bit of a prima donna. Ironic because he comes from Prince George's County in Maryland, which is just a hardcore basketball area. But, you know, he just gets salty all the time. You know, you are an American, do act like it to the media. That's their job, dude. And whether he likes it or not, Team USA that's the standard we all live up to. Like, no one, I mean, I assure you, NBC's ratings were the lowest, I think, of all time, at least since they've been on national television, global television. You know, and nobody watched Team USA, not only because of the time difference, but, you know, the only thing that would make headlines is if they lost. And yeah, they lost to France in the opening round. And France was a team that has played together many, many times. And, you know, obviously when they come together, like Rob, they needed something that would bring them together. And that happened. So maybe Durant should thank the media instead of calling them, or essentially calling them un-American. But he's always been that way, dude. He's been totally whiny. He's been short with the media. At this point, you know, media individuals know that they can bait him and say certain things, and he'll just give them tons of headlines because he is so emotional. But is he a great player? Absolutely. Amazing.
With his 3 Olympic medals now, is he the greatest American Olympic basketball representative that we have?
Raj, you want to jump on that first?
So, yeah, this was a topic that I talked about and one that I've seen. You know, I believe he's the all-time leading point scorer, but this is his 3rd or 4th Olympics. Short answer, no. The Dream Team in 92, yeah, I know we love to romanticize that team. And, you know, Bird, Magic were sort of on the tail ends of their career. Magic, you know, was HIV positive, announced before that team, actually. But you had Jordan, all these guys, and they kicked everyone's butt. Yeah, sure, I've heard the argument, international competition, more NBA players now. Come on, dude. It doesn't matter. If you got a team full of NBA players, and let's say you give them 6 months to practice, like these international teams did, minus their NBA stars, they'd win by 100. It's not international competition. So, yeah, Durant has played. He's a volume accomplishment gainer, if you will. There's a shorter word that it encapsulates that, but I can't think of it. You know, and great players they make other players better. Can we say that about Durant ever? No. You know, and then he gets all chap ass in the media. So if anybody defends him, then they're probably chap ass too. Great player, obviously won 3 gold medals, but you know, we always have this tendency, and it's fodder to anoint the greatest of anything. What have you done for me lately? But I'm sorry, dude. If Jordan played 3 Olympics, Magic, LeBron, I think, did play 3. Yeah, he didn't have the most all-time points because he dished the ball out and made other people better. So, short answer, long answer, no.
I'm going to agree with Raj's take on no. And I was just sitting here thinking about this. And to me, and maybe it's my age, maybe it's my love for him. For me, it's Kobe Bryant. He was on those teams that rescued the losing that we were doing in the Olympics and in the World
Right.
Championships. He came and won gold in 2008 and 2012. Never lost a national game when he was on the team, 26-0 across 3 tournaments. Yeah, so I mean that for me, it's I guess one of those that with his passing, it's going to be burnt into my mind now. As I sat here and thought about listening to Raj talk, I still think Kobe, to me, and which is weird because he's born in Italy, played for the USA, but I think he's my memory of USA basketball.
I went back and forth with this, Robbie, and I guess what got me was there. And again, I'm going to go to the guy. I am not a Michael Jordan fan. So let me just say that I'm not a Michael Jordan fan. I was bitter at Jordan because I felt like Dominique won about 3 of those dunk contests that they gave to Jordan.
We can go on that topic at some point, and when we're bored. Absolutely, Dominique won that dunk contest.
But I'm going with Michael Jordan as the greatest basketball player, Olympic basketball player. And as soon as Rod quits making the whip, what's he doing over there?
It's the ice maker.
Mookie.
My apologies. I'm listening, though. I'm listening. I need
Michael
to refill
Jordan,
my ice
You can
pack.
hit mute while you're making a drink.
Yeah, you could do it.
I'm not making a drink, actually. I'm refilling an ice pack because all my actual ice packs are out, if you must know. So I have to put one in the bag.
All right, old man.
Michael Jordan won in '84 as a pure amateur. He also won a World Basketball Championship. He also won a Pan Am Championship. Then he came back in '92 as a member of that Dream Team. So I think for me, I really loved when the college guys played in the Olympics for the U.S. I don't think we could send a college team now and even come close to competing. But back in
you couldn't. I mean, they only stay a year. You couldn't. You can't even field a team.
But the fact that Jordan won one as a college basketball player, won one as a professional basketball player, plus during his college career, he went and played internationally in the Pan Am Games, in the World Games. I'd like to, but Durant in my head was number 2. After your spill over Kobe, I think you're right. Kobe did save us from the abyss of it looked like USA basketball was going to be calling some second string guard from the Houston Rockets to start. And all of a sudden, Kobe started playing on the U.S. basketball team, and everything changed at that point.
I think because there was a movement to not play because it's during the summer, it's their time off. And I think he pressed players to come, like the importance of it. And hey, if you're gonna come, because if you're gonna, and Jordan was the same way. If you're gonna come play with Kobe, with Jordan, you're gonna work hard and you're gonna practice and you're gonna practice hard. And this is not a vacation. We're here. We're gonna win.
Absolutely.
Was not, and I think those teams between, I think it was 98 and 2006 or 2008 where we were losing. It was more of that. Hey, yeah, we're gonna go play, but it's not that big of a deal.
Right.
And real quick, the knock on Kobe early on was that he didn't make players around him better. Jordan eventually did. The Craig Elo fist pump teams. It was all just him. And LeBron, same knock early on. To make others around you better is the essence of a great basketball player, in my opinion. To do it with a bunch of guys that are already, first options on their team is amazing. And again, Kobe, Magic, Jordan, LeBron, they did that. they found a way. They were the leaders of a team full of leaders. Durant to me wasn't necessarily a leader. I don't know what was going on in the locker room, but he was a guy that was a freak, a 7-footer who has unlimited range, and when he's healthy is amazing. And the ball just kind of went through him. But, I didn't really, again, I wasn't there, but I've never seen him as a guy that makes people around him better. For the greatness that he is probably the best accompaniment there is. And I think that's probably more mental than anything in the sense or team related, in the sense that, on the Nets, there's Kemba, OKC, he never, again, unfair criticism. You have to be the guy. Golden State, obviously there was Clay and Steph. I remember going back to his college days, he lost to USC as the leader of the 6th seed, Texas, and USC was the 11, and they knew how to beat him, and they talked about it the whole time. So yeah, perhaps I'm a bit jaded on Durant, but again, I don't see a guy that makes players around him better. I see a ridiculously amazing, freakish, once in a lifetime superstar. But to me, you should be a great teammate as well as a great player, and I can't call him that, but I'm not on the team, so.
Yeah, and just the person that Durant reminds me the most of in basketball history is Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. As far as you're just an unbelievable offensive talent, and with a shot that you cannot stop. There's no defense to a 7-footer that can pull up from anywhere in the gym and shoot you. Kareem won one on his own in Milwaukee. Milwaukee. Then a bunch with the Lakers. But that was Magic's team for the most part. Magic they were surrounded by talent, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was the one. Like if you needed a bucket though, the sky hook couldn't be stopped. And I don't know anything about Kareem personally, how he was as a teammate, but just that unstoppable weapon that you have.
This is unfair because he ended up being a great player and fairly unselfish, especially towards the end of his career. But he reminds me a lot of Allen Iverson. Not as chap ass, even though the practice thing, Iverson was far more mature, believe it or not. And Iverson was just a great player. But, for many years, Iverson just was like, and I don't blame him. Those teams sucked. But, give me the ball. I'm going to get mine. So that is my reminder. Kareem was actually, especially towards the end of his career, more of a team player. But you're right. He realized that, the torch was passed.
Could you imagine being Iverson on those Sixers teams and being like, I've dragged you guys to the final, and then run into Kobe and Shaq and be like, what else can I possibly do?
There's nothing he could do. Bell and Eric Snow and McKee.
So, and we'll close this on, and we'll move on to the Hall of Fame. But the side note to this was the Japanese team finishing with a silver medal, which I think was a complete shock to anybody that handicapped this Olympics ahead of time. In Japan, beating France in the semifinals, unseen. And I got to think the Japanese basketball culture seems to be, now we have a flood of Japanese major leaguers. 10 years from now, I would not be as shocked to see a flood of Japanese players coming to the NBA. But then again, they don't grow a lot of 7-footers in Japan. So let's move on.
Wait a minute. I thought if they beat France, doesn't France get a silver if they beat them in the championship game? I think they medaled in the women's, and I know in the 3-on-3 they were solid, but
US beat
am I wrong?
US beat France in the final.
France.
I thought US beat Japan. You're right then. They got a bronze medal. I got it backwards. I look at now.
I was about to say, I was like, I don't know what I missed after this championship game. But
I had it backwards. But Japan
I think they medaled, though,
medal
in the women's, and I actually watched them with Ira Brown, an American, on the Japanese team, and they beat Slovenia, and they were huge underdogs in the 3-on-3, which was just a weird thing to watch. But, they won in skateboarding. They did all kinds of things. It's like Japan was like, all right, Olympics aren't our place. unlike the Russians in Sochi, we're not gonna be embarrassed. We're gonna just dedicate like 15 years to this. Yeah, they won in women's basketball, silver. Again, skateboarding. They were respectable in basketball and 3-on-3. That's kind of crazy, dude.
I'm going to defend myself.
Not what you
Google has
expect.
it wrong. Google has
I-
the U.S. playing Japan in the.
I think you're talking about
Bowden
women.
round.
That's
And
women, bro.
I know.
90 to 75.
And then they have Sylvania. So I looked at the wrong side. So
Google
that's
doesn't
not
have it wrong.
Google
Google,
has it
Google
wrong,
having
but
it
let's
wrong.
move.
It's you having it wrong.
Our great
It's
and
me
noble
having it
host has it
wrong.
wrong. All right, that's okay. Fair.
And I got it wrong. But the
Don't you
Japanese
dare
played-
blame Google.
Hey,
So-
are you kidding me? We're probably #1 sports talk show in Japan right now. They want
I
to
know
say
it.
it's silver medal.
If you'd
All
shut
about
up, Raj,
Japanese,
I could have
dude.
added some ratings. Okay, quickly.
Ain't that the truth?
We'll move on. Japan, they get to the semifinals, get beat in men's. Do not medal. Women's, they finish second. So I had it wrong. Apologies. Now moving on to the Hall of Fame. So now I do know I saw it. Both the 20 and the 21 class goes in this week. Do you, having watched both days of it, I want to talk about where Peyton Manning's legacy lies. We talked about, I sent you all my top 10 list of players of all time. But specifically, I don't think many people would argue that Brady's not the GOAT just from the championships he's won now. But is Peyton a clear number 2? Or is there an argument that Peyton's still the best quarterback of all time? Robbie, I'll let you fire out the corner on this one.
No, there's no argument that Peyton's the greatest of all time. So you have accomplishments, you have winning. Obviously, Brady he's almost lapped the field. Montana and Bradshaw have 4. He's got 7. 7. That's almost as much as the next top two combined. So, no, there's no argument that he's the most accomplished, the greatest winner. Manning is a unique player. He is loved. He is very intelligent. He's very marketable. Already, though, would you say Aaron Rodgers is better than Peyton? Would you say Patrick Mahomes is better than Peyton? Those are up for debates. You still have Montana with 4 in a different era. If Montana played in this NFL with the offensive rules, he could be throwing some darts in there. Think Drew Brees accuracy with much more friendly pass rules. I've got Peyton. So with accomplishments, I've got Peyton in my top 10. I've got him at 3 behind Brady and Montana quarterback wise. But yeah, I mean, you can argue talent wise. Aaron Rodgers could be number 2 or up maybe number 1, and then Mahomes is still young, and and then Marino. There's talent versus accomplishment. It's a hard thing to do because it's such a team game.
So the fact that could you make the argument Peyton is the greatest regular season quarterback and Brady's the greatest playoff quarterback?
I mean, Brady's regular season was pretty damn impressive. Also, would they win? What? 6?
It's just that he's a 3-time MVP versus a 5-time MVP.
But that's voting versus that's media versus players, and a lot of it's. And I think what made this debate even more difficult is that Brady won last year without Belichick. I think that was always the fallback was, is this Belichick? And then to win his first year without Belichick, I think that's just what sealed, signed, and delivered the argument that you can't put anybody above Brady. Wait, he's the only one to win with 2 teams. I'm correct about that, right?
Yes. No. Now Peyton won with 2 teams.
Oh, yes, Peyton did.
Peyton won with 2 teams, but
he's won 2 with 2 teams, where Brady's won 7 with 2 teams.
yes. And I will tell you before we go to Raj, I was actually dismissed from a podcast, and it was over 2 issues. And then we'll get your gut reaction. One, I said there's no way, and I argued with everybody on the staff, there's no way that Tom Brady's not the GOAT today. There is no way after him winning it with Tampa that there's no way. And I love Peyton. My child is named after Peyton. And 2, there's not anybody with a complete enough resume to argue that Peyton is number 2. Their argument was Drew Brees has every passing yardage record, every touchdown record. My content is they are 2 people that are heads and shoulders above everybody else. Peyton went to 4 Super Bowls. That's on par with anybody in history, Montana, whoever.
Elway.
He went to 4.
1, 2.
1, 2. The 5
Because of
MVPs.
Terrell Davis. Just kidding.
The 5 MVPs is what separates him to me, and the fact
Jim
that
Kelly went to 4.
who did?
Because
Jim
of Thurman
Kelly.
Thomas and
Yeah,
Andre Reed.
but
No, I mean,
that makes my point. Is Jim Kelly a bad quarterback because he lost 4 Super Bowls, or a great quarterback for making 4 Super
Well,
Bowls?
it's the same argument. It's the same stupid argument that, Jordan never lost in the finals. Well, he lost in the playoffs many a times, and so because you don't advance far enough before you lose does not make your finals record any better.
I mean, we tend to crop our perspective when it comes to argument and attempts at being persuasive. If Brady didn't, I don't know who you call the greatest. Like we talked about Mahomes and Rodgers. Brady couldn't throw the ball 30 yards from his knees. Mahomes could throw it 70 yards. You know who else could? It was Jamarcus Russell. Being athletic, it's a different NFL now. It's not the pure pocket passer. If you go to straight pure passer, Marino was amazing. Like, what are we judging it by? I think we can find qualifications for every great quarterback. Brady had. Belichick, not necessarily the greatest defenses, but pretty good defenses. Montana had some great all-around teams with Bill Walsh and Bradshaw had the best defense before the 1985 Bears, like ever. But I don't want to take away from these guys. I don't understand, again, why it's fodder, why we need to compare who's the best, who's this, who's that. Peyton Manning is back, and I can't tell you what he's done. And again, I think there's this sense of notoriety that, people on the West Coast and the world, they recognize Tennessee because of Peyton Manning. I recognize Peyton Manning because of Peyton Manning. He's not only a great player, he's an amazing teammate, probably the classiest player I've ever seen. You never saw him blame anybody or call out the media like a Kevin Durant reference. He made everyone around him better. If he had even like a micro element of a defense, I'm making up words now, they would have won 3 or 4 championships. It was all him. And on top of that, he's a very intelligent guy, like you said. He's become a TV and pop culture icon. Starting with that hilarious Saturday Night Live skit where he's plucking kids in the head. When I saw that, I was just like, wow, this guy is just different. And he's had the spotlight on him his whole life, but he's just got one of those intellects, sense of poise and pride, and just a different guy altogether. Brady is a hermit. Peyton is not a hermit. Again, not necessarily corresponding as much to the football field. I'm just saying, Peyton is got his. People have their own greatness. And I don't think there'll ever be anyone like Peyton Manning, whether it be his 5 head or the fact he got dimed out of a Heisman Trophy or had the whole roster that won a national championship after him or had 5 chances. Just a great player who never blamed or made excuses for anything. And again, I hate the greatness argument. If you're asking about why I say greatness, who's won the most Super Bowl championships? Brady. Let's just frame it that way. If I was starting a team now, in terms of, Peyton would probably be my pick. I hate to say that, like in the sense that, how can you say Brady without Belichick? Like if you had a flat team right now, Manning's a guy that I'd probably have more confidence in than anyone else in history. Oh gosh, I'm gushing about Tennessee. I need more wine.
Decide whether to save you or not.
Please do. But I'm speechless. I just praise Tennessee. So please, Jesus, forgive me.
Well, I think yes. So like it's hard to say. It's hard to argue against 7 championships as the quarterback. But if you do want to start peeling away some layers, then you look about. You can look and say, all right. Well, one they got given one for the tuck rule. There's Spygate. There's Deflategate. So there's some things, and then you also have the way the NFL is set up. Brady played most of his career in, if not
easiest division in football.
Yeah, one of the easiest divisions in football. And so they almost had two home playoff games in the Super Bowl in a climate. You have to remember, think back to Green Bay, and there's this. They didn't lose a football game in Lambeau in the playoffs for like 30 years because these elements matter. And you get teams coming up there into Foxborough, like you have things like the tuck rule that happened. Like things like this, like they definitely were a benefactor of the circumstances of Miami sucking, Buffalo sucking, and the Jets being the Jets.
But don't we end up like diminishing all these guys with these qualifications? Like, oh, this guy's great, but he had this, he had that. Why can't people just be good and great and we respect them and what they did on the field and off on their own? Yeah, I guess that's boring and that won't get clicks, but it's silly to me.
I think the most important thing to remember about Peyton Manning, and the one argument you can make no matter what, when he entered Isidore Newman High School, he was Archie Manning's son and a starter as a freshman and produced at the highest level. He went to the University of Tennessee as the second signee in that class. Brandon Stewart was Brandon Stewart was maybe more ballyhooed than Peyton Manning was in that class. He set 5 football games, won the starting job, and started every other football game he ever played. Those 5 football games at Tennessee his freshman year is the only 5 football games that Peyton Manning didn't start in his career. Whoa. And he produced in high school, college, pro football, at every level. Every spotlight has been on him, and he's been able to pull it out. I think that's the best thing about Peyton.
Well, I'll tell you a quick story about my fanhood. So I'm a really, really big Titans fan, diehard Titans fan. The Colts had 2 back-to-back generational talents. Very much to the Packers. They had Peyton Manning, obviously, and Andrew Luck. During the time Peyton Manning, after his rookie year, not once did I go into a game thinking the Titans were going to beat the Colts because of Peyton Manning. And there were some Steve McNair, Eddie George, some really good Titans teams in there, and I never thought they were going to win because Peyton was that good. Even we had Kerry Collins against Andrew Luck and Jake Locker against Andrew Luck. I at least had some hope that we were going to win. Never against Peyton Manning did I think the Titans were going to win.
And you're always shocked.
Luck got hurt. Yeah. It's a shame. He was a special kid. I think Andrew Luck was going to be one of those generational talents. So,
Mhm.
Raj, last word.
Always
We'll go on
shocked.
to the NFL top 10.
No, always shocked when you played Manning. It was like, as a Raider fan, played Elway, same thing. Just expected to lose because you were just waiting for him to do something great. Oddly enough, I had Super Sports Weekend one year back in graduate school where I went to USC Notre Dame on a Saturday. Unfortunately, we lost. Mike Van Raphorst was the quarterback because of injuries. Before the greatness. Flew back home and then came back through Indiana and went to the Raiders and Colts on Sunday night. That was during the Raiders' great years, including an amazing running back from Tennessee, who I believe is arguably the most underrated player in NFL history, in Charlie Garner. Just a phenomenal player. Peyton's last drive, they shut him down. They beat them in Indy on Sunday Night Football. Also, the only time I've seen somebody do an air guitar to the national anthem, but it was Indiana in 2002. So, but I was astonished that not just because not the Raiders won, they were the better team, but that Peyton didn't somehow pull something out of his hat, and that was Peyton Manning, and that's John Elway, and that's Marino for his greatness. You kind of expected the Dolphins to lose for different reasons. Jim Kelly the same way, but there's probably 5 guys in NFL history that when they had the ball in the last drive, you turn the TV off, and Peyton Manning is one of them.
So I agree with everything everybody said. Did everybody make a top 10 list? Because I really want to roll that out there, Rod. I know, Robbie, you made one, right?
I did.
The
All
top 10 of
all-time NFL players.
All time. I thought we were talking about the Hall of Famers that were.
Well, we're going to do that in a second. Let me just run through my list. We got that too.
I can do it quickly.
Well, I listed Tom Brady as the greatest player in NFL history. Jerry Rice, I can't get past. I think he was the second best player, even though he wasn't a quarterback. Jim Brown, I still think was the best running back ever to play in the NFL. And I debated about this next one. Was Lawrence Taylor or was Reggie White the greatest defensive impact player? And I came up with Lawrence Taylor at 4, Peyton Manning at 5, Reggie White at 6, Joe Montana at 7, Walter Payton at 8, Barry Sanders at 9, and Ronnie Lott at 10. And that was my list. I compared it. I had a couple of players different, but that was pretty much most media outlets somewhere around their lists. Robbie, go ahead with yours.
Man, this was tough, and all I kept hearing was while I was going through my list was Mike Wilbon on PTI saying, "Hey, yo, millennial, go to YouTube and look up some of these older players." And so I had some trouble with this because part of it's just what I've seen, and then hearing stories and seeing highlights. Never saw how they impacted the game. So part of this is what I've seen, and part of it is just kind of what you did, Randall, like unanimously greats that people who are older than me. I'm not sure there's anyone older than you alive, but
no, not alive currently.
I've got
to show up and certify.
Yeah, and this is kind of what Raj was getting at earlier. It's tough to rank players versus obviously Jim Brown's a better football player than Tom Brady is, but in his position, maybe Brady's unanimously greater than Brown is, or maybe it's close. But I've got Tom Brady, Jim Brown. I have Randy Moss.
He's in my top 12. I'll put it that way.
I have Lawrence Taylor, Reggie White, Jerry Rice, Joe Montana, Barry Sanders,
Absolutely,
Deion Sanders, and Peyton Manning.
Everyone you named was in my, and I went all the way out to 20 with it just because I'm a nerd. Everyone you named was in my top 12. So Deion was 12. If who was
Yeah.
Randy Moss was 11. So that is my list. You nailed it, except for I have them in a different order.
I agree with both of you. I don't think either you guys can be wrong. And then again, when we come to measurables, to me, Bo Jackson is one of the greatest players ever, but he played 5 seasons, right? Like you extrapolate his ability over 20 seasons and he sets every record in the world. I'm talking about impact. And Randall, I think your list was perfect. To me, Lawrence Taylor versus Reggie White. Lawrence Taylor kind of revolutionized, the stand-up outside rush end. It's essentially like an outside linebacker. The Giants were fortunate enough to have an amazing tackles. Other linebackers like Pepper Johnson. What was his name?
Pepper Johnson. Yeah.
Pepper Johnson. Amazing safeties and DBs that can compensate. Reggie White was known as the strongest person ever to play football. I didn't get to see Joe Green or Johnny Unitas or Anthony Munoz, even though he's an SC guy. I loved your Ronnie Lott selection. I have a quick Ronnie Lott story. Aside from the pinky thing, which is a bit of a embellishment, I guess, in terms of he didn't cut it off during the game and go out there and play. Basically what happened is against the Rams, Jack Youngblood, Jack Youngblood was on that team, but his pinky basically was like that, like a right angle. And the team doctor said, if you keep playing, you probably have to get it amputated. And he said, I'm going to keep playing. The peak era, so I guess it was 15 years ago, I had a friend that had sideline passes for SC at Stanford. Well, SC was dragging ass, and dude gave me a sideline pass, and I was kind of walking out, and Ronnie Lott led the team out of the second half. Ronnie Lott spoke to the team at halftime. He was so intense that I was sort of near them, like in the back. Again, this is like the Snoop Dogg, Will Ferrell days. You can do whatever you want on the SC sidelines, as long as you had a pass. But I remember asking, I was like, Mr. Lott, sir. Like, I turned into a prepubescent kid on The Simpsons. And I just remember him like, what's up, man? Like, just so intense. Like, nothing, sir. Like, I wasn't going to get a selfie or anything because I think cell phones were fairly new back then. But, he was the most intense dude ever. And on the field, he was that way. Off the field, he's a great dude. But he spoke to that team at halftime. They ended up rolling them. But he legitimately scared me. We were on the sideline. What's he going to do? And I did see the nub, and the nub is real. So Ronnie Lott is certainly deserving, whether it comes to football lore or greatest players.
All right, guys, that was a great segment. We're running late, but I still want to get through the 20 class and the 21 and a couple of these players. So let me just run down both classes. I'm going to skip some of the names people never heard of. But in 20, Steve Atwater goes in, Isaac Bruce goes in, Howard Carmichael, Jimbo Covert, a guy I really think is a Hall of Famer, Bill Coward, Cliff Harrison goes in, Winston Hill, Steve Hutchinson, Edgerrin James. I was shocked he got in first ballot, but Edgerrin James goes in, Jimmy Johnson goes in, Alex Karras goes in, and Troy Polamalu goes in. And there's some older players. Another guy of note that went in was Steve Sable. If you're my age, you grew up with NFL films. Steve Sable introduced me to more NFL football than probably all 3 networks. In this class, in the 21 class, Alan Fanek goes in, Tom Flores, Areta, Calvin Johnson, John Lynch, Peyton Manning, Bill Nunn, Drew Pearson, and ironically, I think kind of touched my heart, Charles Woodson goes in the same class as Peyton Manning. And the assignment I gave you guys, if you want me to go first, or you want to go first, just pick out 2 or 3 of these guys that not everybody knows everything about, and tell me why you think they're a Hall of Famer. And Rod, you seemed ready for this one earlier, so let's start with you.
I can't argue with any of those guys. I'm glad you touched on Steve Sable because he was revolutionary when it comes to football, but sports journalism. he was the first guy ever to kind of put you in the lap in the helmet of the NFL player. As a kid, I'm sure many of us remember watching those years in review, the 1990 Buffalo Bills or what have you. Couldn't wait for your team to come up. And they made every team, even if when the Raiders were 3-13, look like a possible Super Bowl contender. But without him, they started out with one camera, and now there's 38 cameras for NFL films. And without that, there's no Hard Knocks. There's none of these sort of interactivities that go on with football. So I'm glad you mentioned that. Steve Atwater was really feared, man. He's not one of my numbers. Can't believe he doesn't have CTE, because that guy back in the day when helmets were bricks, but that guy just ruined people. And I don't say that flippantly. I don't mean any disrespect, but I'm shocked because the way he hammered people, he was the next Ronnie Lott. Obviously, I'm going to go with Polamalu. Troy Polamalu goes hand in hand with the ascension of USC football. It's not about that. One of the few players, and probably the nicest guy you'll ever see. I've met him a couple times. We're not exactly BFFs, but I couldn't believe how passive and nice and soft-spoken he was. Point being, though, is one of the few players, let alone a defensive back, where you had a game plan for him. I think it was not Cower, obviously same team, John Harbaugh or someone else, that they would add a 12th man on defense in the practices and put a huge wig on the back of him. So not only would there be more than 11 players, but that was Polamalu, because you felt like it was like Street Fighter. There was 13 of him. Greatness alone. And again, he just did things the right way. An amazing player, an amazing football town. I sort of took this as kind of the underwhelmed names. Edgerrin James was one of them. He was the U. To me, he was the beginning of the U. And that's got nothing to do with, the braids and anything else. He was a good dude that was the start of a flush of amazing running backs, and Clinton Portis, Willis McGahee, Jarrett Payton, who had 1,500 TDs and 15 touchdowns or something like that. People don't remember him. Just a run, and shortly after him came the UU, and without him, that stuff doesn't happen. I mean, Larry Coker was the head coach for a lot of that. Give me a break. Kids didn't go there because of Larry Coker. They went there because of Edgerrin, and not to, also Frank Gore as well. Flip side of that argument being that, he had Peyton Manning, a lot of great quarterbacks. I mean, most of their, I was going to sort of attribute that to a West Coast offense, but that's not necessarily the case. He was just a guy that stood the test of time, and one of the toughest dudes ever. And again, put that school on the map. So I was a big fan of him. Tom Flores is obviously, it's too easy. I guess my other guy was, it's just nice to see great players be recognized, because baseball is sort of Durant Chapass when it comes to this. You have to have 30 years and X amount of thresholds to get over.
Right.
Calvin Johnson didn't play it long. Great player. John Lynch, Charles Woodson, good for them. Steve Sable. Baseball would never put in a Steve Sable. And I admire that greatly. So on top of those two guys, I'm just looking at, underdogs. On top of that, how old I feel with Winston Hill and Bill Cowher, and who else was inducted? Oh, Steve Hutchinson. Jeez, man, I remember these guys getting drafted. Good Lord. So anyways, just kudos to the NFL and the Hall of Fame, because they do the right thing and they honor those that deserve to be honored.
I agree with you that NFL Hall of Fame to me is the best of the three major sport Hall of Fames. Robbie, where are you at on this?
I swear, people, we did not talk about this beforehand.
No, we didn't.
My notes echo y'all a lot. And as I was thinking about this and looking through this line and this list, Steve Sable and NFL Films, they were at least more than partially responsible for
Absolutely.
the rise of the NFL in this country. And while Ronnie Lott is on this list, you look at Ronnie Lott and you look at when NFL Films was at its peak, it was people like Steve Atwater and John Lynch and these hard-hitting safeties that what made us all fall in love with the game. And it was that, yes, you go across the middle and hear it, that impact. We've all learned since then about the dangers that are associated with that. But that's what, at least for me, was part of my first love for the NFL was those players and that inside look at behind the scenes of the game. And so I agree with both of you. The NFL is the best Hall of Fame. They incorporate every aspect of it: ownership, general managers, coaches, punters, kicker, the ins and outs of the game. I remember those Steve Atwater and those orange jerseys and those championship teams. And I'm with y'all with Edgerrin James. Him at the U, and younger people, the U was something. It was a brand, and
They were Alabama before Alabama, USC before USC. They were the brand before you needed a turnover chain or any of that crap.
I was looking down, and while I was doing research this evening, I was like, all right, so Edgerrin James won a championship with the U, and then he won with the Colts. He wasn't on either of those teams, and I was shocked at that. I would have bet money he was on that 2001 team, but I guess that was what, Clinton Portis and McGahee. Yes.
Yeah.
God,
and it was Joseph Adai with the Colts.
Yeah, that team was loaded. The U was. And then so I got John Lynch for the 2021 class, and the other one I got that Raj touched on, Calvin Johnson. Man, you talk about a talent that probably since Randy Moss was the most freakish. And man, you get stuck at Georgia Tech with a triple option, and then you go to the damn Lions. Like, what happened? How did that? I mean, what bad karma is that? And
Six dudes would cover him on every pass.
Yeah, it's and what could have been, and then the Lions, man, that's two generational talents that retired at 30. What are y'all doing?
Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's a great point.
And
They take your soul and they stomp all over it, man.
Yeah.
And might have wasted the majority of a generational talent in Matthew Stafford. Because
Yeah.
I'm telling you, we'll find out in LA how good he is this year.
Yeah, I mean he's been great. I wouldn't say great in Detroit. He was really, really good at Georgia. 5 yards probably away from a championship. That was the year that Notre Dame was on the other side, right? So whoever won that Alabama Georgia game was going to roll Notre Dame. Yeah. So one play away from a national championship at Georgia.
Anyone else?
One thing. No, I was just going to say about Calvin Johnson. I know his mom was a big influence in his life. He was also reportedly an amazing baseball player, a 5-star in one service, a 4-star in the other. Yeah, I mean, Georgia Tech has always kind of been that triple option offense. I don't remember his quarterback in, 94 or whenever the hell it was.
Joe
2000,
Hamilton, I believe.
Oh, my gosh.
Wait.
That guy wasn't he like 5'7" or something?
Was it not Joe Hamilton?
No, that's way too long ago.
Yeah, that guy was tiny.
Joe
dude.
Hamilton, that was one of the teams that beat Bobby Bowden and Florida State.
No, I don't think so. Hold on. We'll pull it up.
The thing about, he had Chan Gailey as an offensive coordinator who was a great recruiter, and I don't think his mom wanted him to go too far away. But, that's not where receivers go to become top 15 receiver talent-wise in the history of the league. There's no doubt about that. Who was the coach?
No, I wasn't even in college.
Oh, not the coach. Chan Gailey, but the quarterback.
Joe Hamilton was.
I'm looking
Dude,
it
that
up.
guy was like Doug Flutie, like a midget.
No, yeah, Chan
2006
Gailey.
Tech football stats, which would have been his senior year. The leading passer. Well, I was close. It was Reggie Ball.
2000s. Oh gosh.
And
Joey
Reggie Ball was worse
Joey
than-
Hamilton had to have been in the late 90s.
But I agree with Randall in the sense it doesn't really matter. Those guys were not exactly like dudes where a great receiver would want to go play with.
Yeah. So I'm going to talk about a couple of guys real fast, and these are going to date me, but and I know you guys never seen them unless you saw the NFL film things. Howard Carmichael was a 6'8" wide receiver in the 70s. Before the era of Megatron, before the era of think LeBron James playing wide receiver. He had that kind of body. And he was just a freak of nature. And I remember he used to get in a huddle. And remember back in the 70s, linemen were maybe 6'1", 6 foot, 240 pounds. And you would see 6'8" Howard Carmichael in the huddle with these guys and just towering over everybody on the team. And
Was it Philly? Was it Philly?
Philly, yeah. Played with Ron Jaworski. Got the one Super Bowl with Dick Vermeil.
Oh, wow.
Wilbur Montgomery. Pretty good football team. Played on a lot of bad teams. A guy close to my heart because I got to see him play in the Super Bowl, and it may be the only reason he's on the list. But I thought Isaac Bruce made the Rams teams dangerous. He was Tyreek Hill before Tyreek Hill. He was the guy that could get downfield. You know, it's like greatest show on earth. And I mean, this was before all the run and gun and throw it around. It was kind of revolutionary back in, I think it was 2099, that they were doing this and throwing the ball for 400 yards.
Do we have to talk about the Titans Super Bowl loss?
No, we don't.
Torrey Holt, Ricky Prohl, right? Like
It was a great team.
You know that they reminded
Marshall
me,
Faulk, minor detail.
That team reminded me of the '98 Vikings team, who somehow inexplicably lost to the Falcons at home.
15-0, right?
Yeah,
Missed the field goal. The guy missed the field goal.
To the Dirty Bird.
and then
He missed the field goal and hadn't missed a field goal all year.
right.
Randy Moss and Chris Carter.
Yep.
Oh man, that team versus that Broncos team would have been.
I would have
a
murdered them.
fantastic show.
I was praying for it. Didn't happen.
So
Hey,
the next
Denver.
guy I want to talk about real fast, it was before my time too, but Alex Karras was a dominating football player for the Lions
Webster.
and was suspended from the NFL for gambling for a year. Him and Paul Hornung both were dismissed. I think the fact that he was dismissed from the NFL probably kept him out of the Hall of Fame until now. But the guy outside of football, and I hate to use this reference, but it's the only one at that time that replies. Him and O.J. Simpson may have been the two most popular athletes post-career that existed. He was Mongo in the great Mel Brooks movie. What is that?
Blazing
Movie?
Saddles.
Blazing Saddle. He was Mongo. He had a TV series in Webster. He was just a great he was a great thing for football.
The two of them and Dick Butkus,
Yeah.
to me, were like Peyton Manning. They became TV and pop culture icons. And yeah, great player that people didn't know about. But I know tons of people that also in Porky's. Great movie.
Yeah, he was important. And I want
people
to
don't realize he was a dominating player.
I want to talk about Tom Flores just for a second. And it's not kind of to butter Rogers' chain here, but the
Got
dude
nothing to be
fathered,
with me.
How do you follow John Madden as a head coach? And somehow he figured out how to do it. He pulled Jim Plunkett out of the scrap heap. and won a Super Bowl. He was a guy I didn't ever think would get in the Hall of Fame, but was most worthy of it. I really think this 21 class, though, Alan Faneca might have been the best offensive lineman of his era. Tom Flores, a much underrated Colt. Calvin Johnson,
Also a
no doubt.
quarterback, by the way.
Yeah, played 10 years in the AFL. Calvin
And
Johnson.
the first Mexican immigrant ever to make the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. Calvin Johnson, the most decorated wide receiver of his era. John Lynch, another one of those safeties that would just knock your lights out. Won titles. Peyton Manning, I don't know who Bill Dunn is. I didn't see that one. I'm sorry. Drew Pearson maybe was part of one of the most dramatic plays in NFL history. The Hail Mary with Roger Staubach in the playoffs against the Vikings. And as much as I don't like him, they said it on the broadcast. Charles Woodson was a shutdown corner that became a shutdown safety in the NFL. And there's a handful of guys that could have accomplished that. And Charles Woodson never stayed anywhere too long. I mean, he was a Raider for quite a while. He went to Green Bay, came back to the Raiders, I believe, for a year. So I really thought Charles Woodson was one of a kind, but there's no way he deserved the Heisman, and that's my last word on that one. Anybody else on the Hall of Fame?
I'm not going to get into that one, but yeah, I mean, think about how great you must be as a shutdown corner and then change positions. Like, that's not the easiest thing in the world. People think so. He also played strong, by the way. He played free and strong. Either side of the, even towards the end, he played nickel. Like, just an amazing football player. And yeah, I mean, there were certain, I'm not going to go in the Heisman thing. If he doesn't make that one-handed interception and the Big Ten isn't stronger in the SEC, yeah, it's probably a different story, but it doesn't matter. They're both great players, and to Peyton's credit, he's one of the classiest dudes. Exactly. And Peyton's so classy. He never mentioned it, said anything about it, diminished anything. He gave him props even from the time he was 21, which just, real quick, you talk about Peyton Manning. I mean, it's just much respect, and that translated, that's universal. But yeah, just an amazing player that was a great leader. Yeah, he went to Green Bay for like 7 years, I think. He was in Oakland for 8, I believe. Then Green Bay for 6 or 7, then 3 more years in Oakland. And he was a difference maker, man. I mean, just wow.
Robbie, did you get to hear Peyton Manning's speech, by the way?
I did. I looked him up on YouTube today, both Peyton and Charles Woodson. Well, I would be interested. I'm going to try to look this up when we get off the air. I wonder how many 1 and 2 first and second place finishers in the Heisman are in the Hall of Fame together. Not necessarily the same class, but just in the Hall of Fame.
In general, yeah, that's a great question.
I thought Charles Woodson's was emotional, and it was great. And I thought Peyton's angle was unique, very well thought out, and very much about the future of football. And the other takeaway I had, whenever, especially us in Tennessee, whenever we hear Peyton's name being thrown out either loosely or seriously for political office, that speech was very much a trying to create a movement to do things. And
wait,
so,
I thought he was going to be head coach at Tennessee, according to 90% of Knoxville.
Damn it, no, John Gruden's the next coach. Don't you know this by now?
Touche.
And so, but I thought it was a good call out. I didn't like how they limited them to such short time.
It could have been better.
Yeah, and Raj and I are both attorneys by trade, and if you say, "Hey, give us an hour to talk," hey, that's the easiest thing to do in the world. Give us 10 minutes to talk, and that gets very difficult. And
Awesome.
and I thought that I didn't like how it was rushed. I wish they would have given them not as much time as they wanted, but at least some time to get what they want to do and say a lot. Because I know Peyton had to say, "Hey, I've said thank you to a lot of people before. I couldn't do it tonight because of the time constraints." And that just because Cutcliffe didn't get mentioned, and we all know anyone who's followed Peyton and the Manning family knows how important the Cutcliffe. David Cutcliffe is to the Manning.
Absolutely.
And that was just if you know Peyton, you know that just felt bad for him not to be able to give a real shout out to him.
I agree with that 100%. And and we'll go to Bet Your Nuts after this. We lost Raj. It was odd. They did a thing when he was inducted, and they brought all the head coaches back he'd ever played for. But they also brought David Cutcliffe up to present,
I didn't see that.
And it was like when he got found out he was going into the Hall of Fame. And I really think Peyton doesn't go to Tennessee to play for Phil Fulmer. He went to Tennessee to play for David Cutcliffe, and I think that's way overlooked. We'll see if Raj makes it back. I hate to lose him right here at the end, but to be honest with him, Robbie, you're on such a roll. I don't even know if we need him for Bet Your Nuts. I mean, could you get one more pick right in a row? Go ahead, brag on yourself a little bit.
Well, yeah. So, as you guys know, I picked Atlanta United and Montreal to draw at 2-2. I don't know who all watched that match. It was nuts. There was goals. There was near misses. Montreal got off to a 2-0 start. Then Atlanta scored 2 in a row. They lost 12 in a row now. But they have signed a new left wingman now. They broke their losing streak, and so hopefully things are in the right directions for Atlanta. I don't know if there's enough time for them to get back and seriously to the playoff hunt, but Atlanta's spending some money, which is good, and hopefully they'll build on this momentum, hopefully in a year, and then roll into next year. As far as and then this was not on the show, but
he did text me pre. So
Sunday, which is I don't know why I was such a coward. I usually always bet $100 on all of these, but I ended up betting 50 on Kyle Larson on Saturday or Sunday. He won, so won $450 on that, I believe. Or $250 on that one, $450 on Atlanta United. Barry James, hopefully you're watching. He joined me on the Atlanta United bet, so he cleared some cash too. And then so for my Bet the Nuts pick this week, man, if it's not broke, don't try to fix it. Kyle Larson is having one of the best seasons on the NASCAR circuit since Jimmy Johnson was dominating. I guess Hamlin and Harvick did well the first year COVID. It's plus 280. Don't love the number. Chase Elliott's plus 210. So Chase Elliott's the favorite, plus 210. Larson's plus 280 though, so I'll take the better driver this season for slight better odds. I'm going with Kyle Larson at plus 280 to win the Brickyard on Sunday.
I like it.
And I'll bet 100 this time.
Raj, do you have your picks ready?
I did. It was centered around tonight with the Dodgers, obviously, because that's the thing I know the best. They're winning 4-0 in Philly, a team that I guess you guys are all Dodger fans, you Braves fans.
Go Dodgers.
Exactly. The Phillies have won 8 in a row. It was surrounded by 2 out of 3 out of the series, but only because tonight we had Scherzer going. There was a huge rain delay, so he was put out. Aaron Nola was put out, by the way. Put out meaning like they didn't come back. Nola threw. And the Dodgers without Mookie Betts and Justin Turner, 2 All-Stars, and also the 2 guys with the lowest strikeout rate, the best contact hitters on the team. The Dodgers had 7 strikeouts out of the first 9 outs. Not that anybody cares. But, yeah, that was my bet, my nuts, and I had it on like a piece of paper here, which means it's proof positive. But, it was tonight with Scherzer. It was basically 2 out of 3 in the series. I'll stick with it only because tomorrow's the Vanderbilt legend David Price, and then Julio Urias on Thursday. The thing I don't like about Thursday is it's a 10 a.m. start for the West Coast. Not sexy, bet your nuts. It's also August, so what am I supposed to do? Last week, I won on the Dodgers. I took the under, and they ended up scoring just over the over, so I lost, even though I only bet on the Dodgers, so I did win that. So, yeah, Dodgers 2 out of 3 in Philly, 2 first-place teams. Dodgers with crazy injuries, and I'm sandbagging, but including Mookie Betts and Justin Turner, which sucks. Pitching staff, half of them are dead, but I think we got enough to win 2 out of 3.
Okay, so I'm going to pull my first upset out of my I'm on the AFC North, and I really don't know if this is an upset, but they are not the favorite. You can get plus 145. Y'all ready? In the NFC North, I pick the Cleveland Browns to win the division.
You mean the AFC North?
AFC North, the Cleveland Browns. I'm trying to do a fantasy draft here, and I just drafted a Green Bay Packer. I'm sorry.
You're doing
AFC North.
How many leagues are you in, real quick?
I'm just doing 5. I've cut down.
I cut it down from 3 to 2.
Ask me how
But
many
yeah.
I care about actually winning.
Exactly, 1.
I'm all in 1.
Yeah. Through my friend Philip Chaplin, our buddy Chappie, I'm playing in a couple of Dr. Roto leagues, and I want to plug that for him. It's drroto.com.
Heck
They're now taking subscribers. You go on and you get Chappie's articles. You get my buddy Lou Lander's articles. It's really going nice for them. Them guys have got something really nice going.
They really
myself.
do. I'm not joking, man. I checked it out. I'm old. I've checked out a lot of stuff through the years. That's a solid website with solid information.
Good job.
Back to Randall, though. Wow, you're dissing Baltimore, which I agree with you. Cleveland's on the rise, but Baltimore's arguably gotten better. So we'll see.
Also, an update in the dynasty draft I'm taking. I will let my last words be. In my first 4 rounds of picking, I want y'all to hear this team. Now, this is a 2-quarterback dynasty league, and everybody's running quarterbacks. I've drafted.
How many years is the dynasty?
This is the first year, initial draft.
But how long does the dynasty go for? I forgot. Like, do you have any amount of years, or
No, this
like a
one will go
minimum
forever.
3 years? Or so? Oh,
This one will go forever, hopefully. In the first overall pick, I took Christian McCaffrey. With my second round pick, I took Devontae Adams. With my third round pick, I took Travis Kelce. Everybody's drafting rookies and kids. I'm going to win this year. I just took Jalen Hurts, which I think is a great upside quarterback. I got it. Robbie.
I honestly, I don't like any of your 4 picks, but that's just me.
Hey, you know what I'm thinking if I got number 1. Raj, just for that, you have to go first on your last words.
Son of a. So,
Biscuit eater.
in my last words, I'll talk about Randall's dynasty draft. Number 1, you got dynasty-wise, I don't know if McCaffrey's going to stay alive. Number 2, Devontae Adams, who's essentially tied to Aaron Rodgers. Sorry, man. The worst thing in the world is to undermine your confidence after, like, the SAT, after a test, or after your fantasy draft. But I'm going to go for number 3. Kelce, yeah, it's fine. What is he, 38? I forgot number 3. Who's number 3?
Jalen Hurts.
Hurts. I mean, he's 1 draft away from being a receiver.
Yeah, I'm trying to decide right now between Miles Sanders and again, this is a 2-quarterback league. I got to get Young at some point. Miles Sanders or Justin Fields is my debate right now.
Ugh. That's crap soup. I mean,
I could take a wide receiver. Michael Thomas is still out there.
no, I don't take him. He's definitely down slope. The question is, most dynasty leagues I've been in, and we're going to digress here, but like they've had X amount of years. I mean, can you keep this guy for how many years is the question.
Usually they last about 5 years. I would expect 5 years they peter out.
Dude, Sanders is, you already have a Philly quarterback, and he's going to be their running back, so I would go with Sanders.
That's good.
But yeah,
I'm still debating.
Your team is going to suck. I hate to say that, but it's going to suck.
Yeah. As usual. Hey, semifinal Randall's going to semifinal Randall.
Yeah.
In the losers bracket.
All right, Robbie, you get the next one.
Okay, so as a newly found journalist, I have some breaking news for everybody.
Ooh.
I've got sources that they're saying that a certain Brandon Chain will be coming down from Franklin to Davis, Kessler, and Davis on Tuesday for a little live appearance in our fantasy draft preview.
So Clay, he got the permission as well, the permit, the hall pass.
Yeah, the hall pass is out in full effect. I'm gonna work on some tee times for that Tuesday morning and see if we can get a day off and play. So that should be fun. The other final words I have to say, you guys have obviously known about my feud with DraftKings and their subprime product. Well, so today I was playing around with your Bet Your Nuts pick and seeing all about the payouts and all that. So BetMGM has a parlay generator. So you can say how much you want to win.
I love that site.
Yeah, and you can slide the scale up, and it's a $50 bet, and you can say you want to win $20,000. It will random generate your best odds of doing that. And so for the degenerates out there who like free money, I'm going to start playing it. It's practically a lottery ticket without having to go to the store.
It's kind of like a nice stripper, but still, it's a lot more fun and more scientific and logistical. They're not going to mess you over like the way that DraftKings does. I like the site quite a bit. Oh, well, they'll mess you over. Plus, they've got Jamie Foxx, so Jamie Foxx is pretty sweet.
Yeah, and then also, man, we are 2 weekends from the fantasy draft. Labor Day's coming up. College football starting. The NFL's looking all systems a go. We say this all the time. Everyone, do your part. Let's don't blow football season. I've seen Jazz Fest getting canceled. I've seen the new Bonnaroo mandates.
Get vaccinated, fools.
Yeah, get vaccinated, and let's get this moving back in the right direction. I know Hamilton County's doubled their ICU beds in the last week. Let's stay on it, stay vigilant. I know no one wants to hear my scientific rant, but that was my short little spiel of it. Thanks for watching. We do appreciate everyone that does watch, and next week should be awesome.
Now, we do need to bring our phones, even though we're in the same room. We'll need to use the cameras off the phones. It'll be a very similar setup, but hopefully we won't have to use all of it.
All right,
thanks for telling us that live.
Let's get off here, and then let's talk real quick about how it's going to work.
So, again, from right now scheduled from 3 hours, 8 till 11 is what I put in there, and we'll see if we make it 3 hours. I have to bring my daughter at some point, so I'll have to get her home at a decent hour.
Can she drive? Because I think she's like 13, but Uber's been tough, and I need to get home. And from north side, it's going to be tough.
We will get you home. So
yeah, Randall's our sober driver.
Yeah,
man. I live in BFE. Unless he's going to Knoxville for the first Tennessee game, it's kind of out of the way.
And you never know. You never know. I did get that worked out today.
I know you're loyal as hell, and I appreciate you being loyal when I was severely down, so thank you.
Raj Mehta, Robbie Davis, Randall Cunningham, and no, Japan didn't get a silver medal in men's basketball. We wrap it up.
Women's, bro. Women's. Same thing.